You are not weak. You've simply been conditioned to shrink. Every day, you wake up and replay a script that was never yours. You smile when it's expected. You stay silent when you should speak. You tolerate what is slowly eroding you. And you call it humility. If this feels familiar, don't scroll past it. This is where the problem begins. No, that is not humility. That is surrender in disguise. Understand this clearly. Humility, without power behind it, is nothing more than a refined strategy for accepting disrespect. The world does not reward the good. It responds to value, position, strategy. You are not falling behind because you lack effort. You are falling behind because you are playing by someone else's rules. Pause for a moment. Whose game are you playing? Beneath all those safe habits, there is another version of you. Colder, sharper, more dangerous. But you buried it. For the sake of being accepted. You don't need to answer this to anyone. Just know it. This video is not motivation, not advice. This is a blueprint, a system to reconstruct how you think, how you react, and how the world perceives you. But there is a price. You cannot step into a new version while still protecting the old one. So before we begin, understand this. Your current self must die. If you're not ready to hear that, you can stop here. No one is forcing you. Mediocrity doesn't kill you instantly. It doesn't take your money. It doesn't take your time. It takes who you could have become. Every morning, you stand in front of a small decision. Sleep longer or rise. Scroll again or start. Comfort or discipline. And you tell yourself, just today, it's fine. But you don't understand. That is not a choice. It is a transaction. You are trading your stronger self for a version that is easier to live with. If you're honest, you've made that trade more than once. Repeat it long enough. You don't just become weaker. You become invisible. No one notices. No one remembers. No one needs you. And here is the part most people refuse to face. This system was never designed for you to become exceptional. This video is not motivation, not advice. This is a blueprint, a system designed to reconstruct how you think, how you react, and how the world reads you. But there is a cost. You cannot step into a new identity while still protecting the old one. So before we begin, understand this. Your current version must die. If you're not ready to hear that, you can stop here. No one is forcing you. Mediocrity doesn't kill you instantly. It doesn't take your money. It doesn't take your time. It takes the person you were meant to become. Every morning, you face a small decision. Sleep longer or rise. Scroll again or execute. Comfort or discipline. And you tell yourself, just today, it's fine. But you don't understand. That's not a choice. It's a transaction. You are trading your more powerful self for a version that feels easier, if you're honest. You've made that trade more than once. Repeat it long enough. You don't just become weaker, you become invisible. No one notices. No one remembers. No one needs you. And here is the part most people refuse to face. This system was never designed for you to become exceptional. It was designed to make you controllable. You were taught to obey, to be stable, to be realistic. But that realism is nothing more than the ceiling of those who already gave up. You consume more than you create. You think more than you execute. And you wait for a signal that will never come. If you're still waiting, you're already late. Mediocrity is not bad luck. It is the result of thousands of choices where you chose the path of least resistance. If you want out, you need something most people don't have. Perception, not seeing more, but seeing accurately. Niccolo Machiavelli did not teach morality. He diagnosed. He observed people, not by what they said, but by how they moved. If you look back, you've seen this before. You just never named it. The truth is, people are not driven by right or wrong. They are driven by incentives and fear. Once you understand that, something shifts. You stop being surprised. You stop being disappointed. You stop placing expectations in the wrong places. That almost does. You begin to see things as they actually operate, not as you wish they did. Think about a recent situation. Someone promised you something. They sounded certain, convincing, but when it was time to deliver, they disappeared, or they shift, or they manufacture excuses. How did you respond? Did you believe them again? Or did you start to question? It wasn't personal. It was a behavioral pattern. So don't hand out trust too quickly. Watch how they move when there is something to lose. Because trust is not a gift. It is a currency. And if you distribute it too early, you are investing without control. If you've already paid the price for that, you don't need to pay it again. Understand this clearly. The world does not care about your potential. It does not care how hard your past was. It does not care that you had good intentions. It does not care how you feel. It responds to one thing: value. You can explain. You can tell your story. But if you don't produce value, everything you say is just noise. This is why you feel like you're trying so hard, but no one sees you. It's not because you're not good enough. It's because you're not yet hard to replace. Pause for a second. If you disappeared tomorrow, how many things would actually stop? That's the real question. Value is not something you have. It's something you forge. In the evenings, no one sees. In the hours you keep going, when others stop. In the moments you fail, but instead of ignoring it, you analyze. Every skill you build is a weapon. Every book you read is data. Every time you endure pressure is another layer of armor. But you're not just making money. You're building a fortress, a version of you that walks into a room and forces others to adjust how they speak. No one says it, but they feel it. Niccolo Machiavelli once said, "It is better to be feared than loved." But understand it correctly. This is not violence, not intimidation. This is invisible pressure. When you do what others avoid, when you stay disciplined while they delay, when you move forward while they explain, you don't need to say anything, but they adjust. If you're still trying to explain yourself, you're operating on the wrong level. You are no longer an option. You become a standard. And from that point, everything shifts. How they see you, how they treat you, and most importantly, how they no longer dare to underestimate you. If you don't build value, the world will crush you in complete silence. No noise, no warning, just your slow erasure. You can be highly capable, but if you don't control how others perceive you, you will still be treated like someone ordinary. This is what most people fail to understand. Perception is not fake. It is strategy. In a world where attention is currency, the one who controls perception controls the game. No one is waiting for you to prove yourself. They scan you within the first few seconds. Your eyes, your posture, the way you hold silence. And they decide who you are. You don't get as many second chances as you think. The biggest mistake of the week: over-explaining. They talk too much. They justify too quickly. They apologize, even when it's not required. If you've done this, you've already lowered your own position. Every unnecessary word is a crack. Every attempt to be accepted is a transfer of power to someone else. You're handing them the pen, and they write your identity however they want. Those with power do the opposite. They don't reveal everything. They don't say everything they think. They don't display everything they have. They leave space. And the human mind hates a vacuum. So it fills it with assumptions that are larger than reality, more dangerous than reality, more intimidating than reality. That is the power of mystery. When others are loud, you slow down. When they rush, you hold your tempo. You don't chase attention, but your presence makes you impossible to ignore. If you can do this, you've already passed most people. This is the part the majority will avoid. Not because they don't understand, but because they refuse to face it. They want power while keeping old habits, keeping the relationships that drain them, keeping their weaker version alive. That does not exist. You cannot become dangerous while living a comfortable life. Pause for a moment. Do you actually want to change? Or do you just want to feel like you are changing? The truth is, the most formidable people were not born that way. They were forged through a process of elimination, ruthless, deliberate, unforgiving. And the most dangerous part, your weakness, is not always obvious. It's not just laziness, not just fear. Sometimes it's loyalty to people who no longer deserve it. Sometimes it's politeness in situations where you should be firm. Sometimes it's your inability to sit alone without reaching for your phone to escape. If you see yourself in this, don't look away. You call it a habit. But in reality, it's a defense mechanism. Niccolo Machiavelli once said, "A man must learn not to always be nice." Understand this correctly. This is not about becoming evil. This is about becoming selective. Kindness without discipline is not a virtue. It is a weakness. And weakness is always exploited. You've seen it before. The more you tolerate, the further others push. The more you concede, the more they demand. Until you no longer control your own position. So, you must learn to distinguish who deserves access and who doesn't. Warm to the right people. Cold to the wrong ones. No middle ground. This is not extremism. This is boundaries. You still feel everything, but you don't let it control you. You still feel anger, but you don't explode. You still feel loneliness, but you don't stop. You shift from reaction to choice. And from that moment, everything changes. You are no longer easy to access. No longer someone who gets pulled around. No longer someone tested and then used. You become a system with boundaries. Difficult to read. Difficult to manipulate. And almost unbreakable. Not because you became stronger, but because you removed what once made you weak. Most people don't live. They drift, lost pulled by noise, meaningless notifications, opinions, from people who have no authority to judge them. If you keep allowing that, don't expect a different result. You don't live separate from your environment. You are a product of it. Every conversation you absorb, every person you keep close, everything you scroll through, every single day, is programming you. Silently, repetitively, without permission, and your mind will label all of it as normal. This is how you get limited, without ever realizing it. Look around you. The 5 people you're closest to. What do they believe about money? About discipline? About life? That is your ceiling. If this makes you uncomfortable, good. It means you're starting to see. Most will ignore it, because changing your environment means losing what feels familiar. But understand this. Resetting your environment is not arrogance. It is survival. You cannot build a powerful system inside a weak environment. When you must become ruthless. Ruthless with your time. Ruthless with your attention. Ruthless with what you allow into your mind. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not every piece of content deserves your attention. Not every conversation deserves your presence. This is not isolation. This is filtration. You don't need many people. You need the right ones. You don't need more information. You need the right data. And when you control your environment, something shifts. You are no longer being shaped. You begin to shape things in reverse. You walk into a room and say nothing. But the standard shifts. The tempo shifts. The atmosphere shifts. Not because you impose, but because you are different. That is real power, not adapting to the environment, but forcing the environment to adapt to you. This world is addicted to noise. Everyone wants to speak. Everyone wants to perform. Everyone wants to be seen. And that is why they become predictable. Every boastful post, every impulsive reaction, every unnecessary opinion is a leak of power. If you're still doing this, you are weakening yourself. The powerful do the opposite. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this clearly. The lion does not roar before the hunt. It moves in silence. Observing, positioning, waiting. And when it strikes, it's already over. That is strategy. Silence is not weakness. It is control. You don't need to announce what you're doing. You let results speak for you. You don't need to prove who you are. You let others figure it out. And by the time they do, it's too late. But there is something that comes with silence that very few can tunnel. Patience. Not passive waiting, but calculated stillness. You don't rush. You don't burn stages. You don't chase shortcuts. While others chase speed, you build a foundation. A little each day. No one sees. No one applauds. But it accumulates into compound leverage. And at a certain point, the gap can no longer be closed. That's when they look at you and call it luck. But you know, it was a system. It was repeated choices. It was the price they refused to pay. You've been looking at enemies the wrong way. You label them as bad luck, as betrayal, as problems, when no, they are data. Every person who stabbed you in the back revealed a vulnerability, not to hurt you, but to make you see. If you're still reacting emotionally, you still don't understand. The moment you seek revenge, you admit they matter enough to pull you off your path. That's not power. That's loss of control. The strategic mind doesn't waste energy on conflict. It converts it. Disrespect into fuel. Resistance into propulsion. They don't counterattack. They ascend. Step by step, in silence, without explanation. And eventually, the distance becomes unreachable. That is the most devastating move. Not confrontation, but becoming untouchable. And when you reach that point, your enemies are no longer enemies. They become irrelevant. At this point, this is no longer knowledge, not advice. This is a choice. You can walk away, return to your old patterns, react the same way, explain the same way, trust people the same way, and keep asking yourself why nothing ever changes. Or you do what most never dare. Terminate your current self. The predictable version. The readable version. The version that always needs to be understood. Erase it. No negotiation. No delay. You don't evolve by trying to be better. You evolve by becoming different, colder in thought, slower in reaction, sharper in decisions. If you've made it this far, you already know what must be done. Niccolo Machiavelli didn't teach you to be a good man. He taught you to understand the game. And once you understand it, you can't go back. Don't just listen. Fark, choose. Right now. Write down one thing you will eliminate starting today. Keep it in silence. The rest, let your actions do the work.